Gary, I think we're ready to start.
Okay. Sounds good. I can only stay a couple minutes. I'm sorry.
All right. You want to we'll just get started. So
Yeah, go right ahead.
yeah, so on the agenda today, really wanted to just spend some time getting everybody as familiar as we can to get started with LD 2003, which is the new state law that's come out related to affordability. And if nobody has this document, I will send it to everybody. But it's the guidelines for LD 2003, which was created by the
I think I sent it out a while ago.
it's worth a read through because it really helps simplify that process. So what my plan is we've started to try to put together a little matrix of what it means. I'm trying to figure out how to simplify the answer to the questions like, well, what does it really mean for us? And a couple of things, if you're not familiar with LD 2003, there's a couple of different sections in there that are really important for here. And one of them is the affordability density bonus section. So basically that part of the law creates an automatic density bonus for affordable housing projects that have at least 50%, I think, or more of their units that are affordable. And affordable in the law means if you're renting, it's 80% of your income limits, or 80% of the area median income, and for ownership is 120% of the area median income. And I can do the math at some point and just say, here's what that means. But I think what's important about that is that it requires a density bonus that's 2.5 times the number of what's allowed in your zones. So, you know, I'm not sure we want to be in a position in the ordinance structure of going through and saying like, here's what that means for your property. But like, yeah, the law is pretty. There's some good language that I've started to see that we could just say, you know, here's what that means. So right now I'm trying to figure out where does that fit into the ordinance structure. Remember, we're also working on updating the subdivision ordinance. So does it fit in place of the workforce housing provisions in the subdivision ordinance? Does it belong somewhere else? I have to figure that part out. That's what I'm looking.
So this passed. So any developments in the pipeline, this would apply to?
No, well, you can't apply the ordinance that doesn't, you know, you can't apply the law. The ordinance hasn't been changed yet, so we can't apply it to projects that are currently under review, for example.
Okay, but does state law supersede local ordinance?
I don't think so in this case. So everybody's required to have, it is already state law as of August of last summer. And then a new law was passed prior to July of this year that punted the deadline for municipalities out to July 1st of 2024. So by next July, all of these changes need to be implemented. So we've got that one. The big deal, I mean, it essentially, where it doesn't really matter as much, I think, and I've got to dig into this a little bit more to Mount Desert, is that it really does get rid of single family zoning in every town. So all zones that allow housing have to allow an accessory dwelling. So we already do that, except for in the shoreline zone. But where it might get a little tricky is our accessory dwelling units are either are 75% of the size of the primary dwelling. I'm not sure you're supposed to do that. I gotta look into that a little bit more.
Is that gonna change it in the shoreline zone here?
It won't change it in the shoreline zone, I don't think. That's not part of this law. Yeah, that's the tough one. That's the one that I think I'm not sure it applies. Yep. And we also in Mount Desert, you already allowed a duplex, which is essentially second one in the lot. So there's that. So we gotta look into that. Let's see, I think there are 3 big things. Oh, the other thing with parking requirements are tied to the affordability projects. So the law requires that you can't require more than 2 parking spaces per every 3 dwelling units. So if you have a 9-lot subdivision, you only get to require 6 spaces. Yep. That was math that I was struggling to thanks.
I had to close my eyes. to do that.
And what about the part of it that says that you have to designate a workforce housing zone?
I don't think, I think it has to deal with your growth area. It's tied to like growth areas and, where you have access to water and sewer.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So, multi-star, so
Oh,
Yeah, I was actually, you got in the comp plan, I had it on my desk and I forgot to grab it, but I do have the map that's supposed to be in the comp plan that shows where your growth areas are.
Gotcha.
And,
It's not in it,
no, if it's in it, I always have trouble finding that map,
when it goes in my content.
but I have it, I can print it off, so like the next time we're meeting, you can really say, okay, let's roll out the map and say, this is where the growth areas are and where it should apply. But what it means is like out in, Beach Hill, RW5 zone, you have to have 2 dwelling units out there, which you already have.
And those couldn't be, workforce zones because they don't have sewer and water, right?
No, that, I mean, I don't think that matters all that much, but I don't think, maybe you're not required by state law to do it. Right, was that your question?
Well, my question was if I thought that, what little I know about that law, that those workforce areas that you designate should have access to sewer and water. I may have misinterpreted what I thought I understood.
Let's see.
Several places say that it will be addressed in rulemaking.
Yeah,
Is that right?
That
which if you get
Wait,
online
yeah,
and try to
to do it.
figure out like
Yeah.
which, like, so I've been trying to do as much research on this as possible right now, and like, there's a section under DEC that was like dedicated to this. But then they have all the recordings, they're like, it's really confusing to figure out, like, well, okay, can you just like, let's find a section on your website that says like past information and then put something right up front that says this is all the current stuff. Because they have all the record, if anybody wants to go back and listen to all the recordings and the question and answer sessions, they're all up there. But it's really hard to tell what is the current rulemaking guidelines. So this even is a little out of date, but I do think I found the current one. And I just downloaded it today, so I haven't had a chance to look at it. It's got a lot of red lines in it.
So these are to go into our zoning ordinances,
Yep,
these laws.
these will be.
So therefore, if it becomes state law, that you have to have it, do you have to have a vote at town meeting, since the town meeting cannot refuse to,
Oh, yeah, anytime you amend,
I think
you
we
gotta
have
go to
to,
town meeting for that,
yeah,
yeah.
I think we have to vote on it because
well,
we're,
we can't vote it down.
that's a great question for.
So what type of vote do you actually have to give?
No, because it's already, it's been signed, so you have to do it, is what they're telling you.
Yep, it's mandatory.
Yeah.
But I suppose
exactly.
But I
procedural,
think somebody
you
could
would
say,
have to
well,
have the
if you
town.
didn't do this right, and now we're gonna, and then somebody could then turn around.
So
and
at
sue.
town meeting, it would just be a procedural nod from the town accepting what the state is forcing upon the community,
Pretty much.
basically.
Unless we,
Because the ordinance needs to be amended at town meeting. We
That's
just
right.
say, we just need this procedural nod from the town
right,
in order to integrate this into our LUZO.
yes, unless we're doing things that are more than what's.
Right.
minimum
Yes,
fire
that's a good
security.
point.
Right,
Yep, so what I think we need to do is just, I've started this. But just to go through, and I'm trying to put it into like a matrix format so people can understand, like, here's what's required, here's what you currently have, here's what we're doing to change it. And go from there, but it's not as easy as that,
I would say that'll be an interesting tool when it's finished.
Well, I think that's the way, I mean, people are gonna ask those questions in that way. What are we supposed to do? What do we currently do? What are we proposing to do that's different than that or not? It's different than what we currently have. And I'm trying to figure out a way to organize that. But I think the affordability stuff, the density bonus stuff. I don't know, I'm not sure where, I think it needs to go in the subdivision ordinance. But I'm not positive. And if it goes in the land use ordinance, that kind of changes the whole way we think about the land use ordinance.
well, wouldn't it be in like both?
Could be a note, a
I'd
footnote.
say in both, because, I mean, obviously 3 dwelling units obviously within a 5-year period goes for subdivision review, and there's your density and, you know, stuff there, but I would think it would also be in the land use zoning ordinance,
Yeah,
under
maybe.
dimensional
Yeah.
requirements.
I think we're gonna have to do maybe a footnote. Another footnote. Yeah. And then again, let's, clarify.
Maybe maps and the comp plan.
Yeah, these are just other maps.
You can read them, you can go,
Yeah, I might need to get the glasses. So I think these are just the maps for the inventory sections.
I know the state has it, because I had to send it to them,
I have it, it's just,
yeah.
I don't know what's not in here.
Didn't have it.
I'll bring it next time, I have it. Might even be over there.
Trying to think of
I brought it
it, yeah.
before. So there's that, what we need to understand too is this, the other part of this is, trying to figure out, yeah, they're saying you can actually have up to 4 units on certain lots. And I'm not sure that's exactly right, so.
Well, it's like she
Figure that out.
blanketed this and just said, every state, you know, every town, every city has to do that without even, you know, you got a lot of towns and cities that have small lots.
Mhm.
And zoning, that just, it doesn't make sense.
Some that don't have a
Every,
comprehensive plan.
yeah, it doesn't make sense in every town or city.
Yeah. There's, the accessory dwelling unit section, and so there's been like 3 or 4 different things that the law does. Parking areas, I already talked about.
Does that apply to apartments as well?
Well, it's the number of dwelling units, yeah,
Yeah,
so you could have. Yeah,
So
9,
theoretically, you could have apartments back up on Main Street that wouldn't have to have as many parking spaces as what we currently. It's changed.
well, see, the thing about your ordinance,
We don't
is
have
you don't have parking standards, and that's
Requirements.
why you get into the
it
situation.
just says
Yeah.
off-street parking is available, but then tell you how many you have to
Sufficient
have.
off-street parking, I
Right.
think is the term,
Yep.
you know how lawyers love that term.
Oh, it gives them wide.
So back in
open.
the day, it seemed like a really good idea to let people work it out, like, yeah, we can figure that out, but in reality, that's where you get into the situation, like, well, don't we have. You know, one person's perception of overburdened parking areas in the village is different than somebody else's.
What could possibly go wrong?
Exactly. So I have actually been avoiding putting parking standards in the ordinance, because I still think it's nice to be a little flexible, but that being said, probably time to think about that too. Also.
Well,
So LD 2003, does anybody have any questions so far?
Probably be worthwhile getting copies. It's online, you can get it printed at home or whatever, because there's a section. That has general questions that have already been asked. Probably the most telling one in there for me is that. It says that LD 2003 is an express preemption of municipal home rule. That means it's being imposed. So we can't vote it out at town meeting. We need to figure out how we adopt it at town meeting in terms of where it fits in, but it's here.
can
So
we make it fit our LUZO?
we can,
I mean, it will fit our LUZO, it just means, what that means is your perception, your current perception of density is not the
it's
reality.
being superseded by
Yeah,
2003. It's telling you what this town's density is gonna be pretty much in different areas,
and I think
isn't it? Yeah.
it is, and
I
I
mean, right
think,
now, like Noel said, we allow accessory residential dwelling units as long as you meet the minimum lot size.
Right.
In the district you're in. It's not applicable to shoreline zoning because of DEP rules. And then, like we said, duplexes, you can have a duplex and just have to meet the minimum lot size or lot area once.
Yeah.
You know, so we're trying to increase the density of development, but they're more, this allows for more density than,
I would say also, like, you know, there are, I think are 3 or 4 elements of the law. And a couple of them we're already doing a pretty good job at, and so that's what I just need to clarify, so. The density for accessory dwelling units and whatever, that is already here, you can already do that. We already allow a duplex on every property.
I'd just like to give you the proper credit for that, because we started doing that here with you letting us know that this was coming.
Yeah,
It's coming, and we can't stop it.
Yeah.
So we might as well get ahead of it.
that and we
And we did
already
some good
do
work,
it.
I think, getting ahead of it. In some areas.
We're in better shape than some towns.
In that way,
Would it
and then
make sense to have this up on the town website?
I would like to like maybe not have that and maybe put together a little information packet of what it means.
I don't know if
for this
that's on the
town.
website.
This is on the DECD website.
No, but I meant the town website.
Oh, it might be already.
I think so.
Cool.
Well, you can put that on as a supplement
Yeah,
too.
but I think we need to like put a summary document together and say this is what.
I think
this
I did
is.
ask John to put that on the website.
Yeah,
So I think people will be asking,
Uh-huh.
because it's come up lately.
yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we've been thinking about it for a while. It's just now's the time that we have to do it. But I would also say in your rules, you already allow for affordable density bonuses for affordable housing projects. And this isn't a huge change from that. The principle of that, it just tells you that density is different. What you're allowed to do is different. How much you're allowed to do is different, I should say. But it's the same principle. So that's already been in place for a long time.
That's all like it's a subdivision.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. I mean, why, you're not gonna do a density bonus for a 2-lot subdivision.
But no,
2
if you
lots.
wait 5 years and do a third one, you know what I mean? Can you put it towards,
I
but
get
that's not, it's only in the subdivision section.
Right,
And at that point, it's not a subdivision, but you get 3 dwellings,
yep,
so it should apply.
it could, I guess. All those units were designated to every 5
Yeah,
years if you put them
that's
in
what I'm
there.
saying though, but it's
Yeah.
not in the land use, it's only in the subdivision.
Right, I guess what I'm saying is, on principle, the town already allows for workforce housing density bonuses. This just changes the calculation, it changes how much bonus you get. So, yeah, all you need is half, not the whole project, you get a lot. So, yeah, it's pretty significant. Rule of law. Anyway. Couple other things I wanted to sort of just start brainstorming about is, we've talked about this in the past, and I think a year or so ago, we worked on. Trying to fix the boarding house rules, like for the village area. But as we're thinking about different opportunities for housing. I mean, different needs for housing. I keep going back to what the harbor's done, just in terminology purposes, I think is really interesting, but they have something called the shared accommodation and they have something called employee living quarters. And I wonder if we want to start thinking about how to have something in the land use ordinance that would allow employers to build seasonal housing units that are just for their use, not because they're so limited. If you do it in the village zone, it's a very limited opportunity to do that. But if you allow them in other places, you might have, like, that's another opportunity that we could look at. So, just thoughts on that?
I like that idea, because these employers aren't gonna be going buying housing that could be
Correct.
for a family. I think it's a fantastic idea. We can make it work.
Yeah, and the trends are employers would rather do more than
Yeah.
that and then not buy a house.
Yeah.
Or they'll put their house
Back
that
in
they
the
bought
pool.
back on the market.
So it was,
Most of the employer housing that they're using now that are regular houses are empty 9 months of the year.
Yep,
So if they build an employee housing for what are essentially summer help, they can be different structures. And they don't
Right.
take as much space. It makes sense to me, as long as the employers want to build one, I don't see why they shouldn't be allowed to.
But that's required on the property where the business is.
that was my question.
I think.
No, that's all right, thank you.
Yours was still until your head though, right? Your
It's all
question.
foggy up there, I don't.
I think that's a policy question we need to look at, but yeah, the principle is we could kind of iron out, the bullet points of what this is and then figure out where it would be appropriate. I would suggest that you don't require it on the property that
Correct.
the place is, because that's very limiting and you're basically gonna have what's at the ASICO, which is, you don't have room for employee
Well,
houses,
and they're already real estate limited.
right?
They've used their entire footprint for manufacturing or construction or whatever it is, there aren't any spots left when you think about some of the employers who employ a lot of seasonal people. They don't have the real estate where they exist, so they would have to purchase additional land someplace else.
Yep.
And construct.
Well,
that
Astica, when
housing.
we created their zoning, we allowed them to have staff housing on the property.
Right, I don't think you need to require this on the property.
No, but I'm just saying, when we
That's why we
created
did that,
that, changed that zone.
Right.
Yes.
We said they could build staff housing on the Astica property.
Yeah, a certain employer could have multiple properties too.
Yep,
So how much are we gonna have to change to allow that kind of building in the different zones?
to try to fit it into our structure, I think we probably create a section in the ordinance called, we'll call it employee living quarters or something like that. And then there'll be a set of standards for that, and we'll create a use in the allowed uses table that would allow that in whatever zone we want to allow it in. And then there may be some subdivision implications there, what we have to think through, since we don't have a site plan review. That would be it.
Would that be
I would
like
hope it'd be
living
like a condition.
dormitories?
Something like a dorm.
Cause I've had Camp Beach Club ask me about building housing on their,
Yep. Talking already. But like, that was a perfect example where it would work great on their property. And then they wouldn't go and buy
right,
somebody else's house, or,
Which they just did.
well, they
Yes.
had a house given to them,
Oh, that was given to him?
Yep.
The one on Beach Hill.
yes. So my sense is, and again, I've in this a lot, but a lot of people are very sensitive to not wanting to go out and buy houses that were formerly year-round houses, but they don't have a choice.
Like my last house.
Yeah.
It's bought up, now it's
Right.
employee housing.
Yeah, and but businesses are gonna do what they need to do to be in business, and we all want them to be in business, so we've got to figure out a way to help accommodate that. Without taking away from the other things that we want to do. So on principle, seems like something we should pencil
Yeah.
out.
Absolutely.
I think it will help the states. In Mount Desert, we have a different challenge. We have states that actually bring in a lot of help. And they're also buying houses for people that they need to live here,
Right.
so.
Yeah, I mean, I've even said that what will drive me away from what I'm doing is not being able to find help.
Yeah,
I just
absolutely.
won't be able to do my job anymore.
Yep.
So this, I don't know if it worked for us, but certainly worked for a lot of other people, a lot of other businesses.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Those are the two big things that I wanted to talk about. I've been reviewing the subdivision ordinance quite a bit lately, and also the model subdivision ordinance that we came up with, and I actually have another model subdivision ordinance that I like a little bit better. We may modify the version of the thing that we have already worked on, but not significantly. I think, recent projects really show the need to clarify the process in particular, so. That's what we're doing.
about the short-term rentals ordinance.
That, Jerome and I just talked about that, that's in the queue, gotta work on that.
Is this all for 2024
Yes,
plus any land use stuff?
oh, yeah. Yep. It'll be a good year. Special
Busy
town meeting.
year, yeah, could be.
I think we really need to do,
No, I
the
don't think
subdivision
we're-
ordinance has been waited, it's too long, it's been too long. You gotta, there's something we need to stop.
I
And it's
agree.
not. The print, it's not gonna be. The policies aren't changing, it's what you have to do anyway, it'll just, hopefully, it'll be a slightly longer document, but more clear in the process. And then again, we have to work on things like, where does LD 2003 fit into the picture for the subdivision rules? Let's clarify, that cluster houses or cluster developments and workforce or year-round housing developments are not the same thing. Two totally different principles. And,
The other term I heard recently was a developmental subdivision, not a land division
Yeah.
subdivision, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, well, I'd never thought about it that way before.
there's two different ways to do subdivisions.
Right.
Yep. So, I mean, one of them, the developmental one, typically you think of as like an apartment building.
Yeah, I was gonna go, those are something, yeah.
Yep. That's exactly right. So I think I've said this for probably however many years I've been working with you guys, but you really should consider getting a site plan review ordinance where you can deal with developmental subdivisions, because the considerations are a lot different. For like an apartment building, you're not dealing with lots, it's different. Or like, if the Sonesville one stop wanted to get built, like the conditional use permit review process is your site plan review ordinance, and it's not what it's meant for, really. That's 2025. So conditional uses are supposed to be, theoretically, it's already been approved with certain conditions, so you should. Hard to deny them, it should be hard to deny them. but-
Not always, I mean, there's new uses established.
Yeah, but like, if you, traditionally, if you think about a conditional use, it's this use is been voted on as allowed with certain conditions.
To a conditional use. permit.
But it's not that the use is, should be assumed to be allowed,
Right,
because it's in the ordinance as allowed with conditions. So it's a different thing, anyway. That's not how we do it.
So that would be a whole new section in the LUZO, right?
I mean, if we really, I struggle with this approach, but I, most of the time, like separate ordinances, so it'd be nice to have a site plan review ordinance, but.
Oh,
that
yeah.
being said, what would be interesting is, do we just combine into a unified code, and you have, Article 2 is the land use ordinance, and Article 3, 4 is the subdivision ordinance, and Article 5 is, site plan review or whatever. It's all the same stuff, it's just whether or not it's separate or combined into one code. That would be probably a mess.
Hmm.
Get through town meeting, hey, let's just repeal and replace everything. I don't know if we have the trust factor there yet. Let's get through 24 first, then
Yeah.
we'll know. All right. I thought when we talked the other day, did you say there was one thing that other thing we were gonna be working on? Thought it was a LUZO.
Land use
Yeah, it was the next
stuff.
thing. We
Yep.
had on the list.
Yeah, when MUBEC got adopted statewide in 2019, any building code that the town or any town or city had was no longer existing. So we have a building code in our town, which really isn't a building code because it's just telling you what you need permits for, which is also in the land use zoning ordinance. It's just telling you, that certificate occupancies are required, life safety is enforced, that's as adopted by the state fire marshal's office. Oil burners need to follow the laws that are in effect for oil burners, and then NEC code for the electrical, and it's just telling you what codes are in effect and where to go. And now that doesn't exist technically, since 2019, we have to add, that's where our certificate of occupancy language is in, so we need to add it to our LUZO. And so I kind of cut and pasted it and put it in the LUZO under permits, administering permits. So I'll show you guys that, I just kind of tweaked it in, I still gotta look at it, but there are gonna be some land use changes, I wanna add some definitions, but right now I don't have it all in front of me, but clarity is better.
No. Okay. That should be a pretty easy one. The
Adding it to the LUZO,
Yeah.
it should, because currently technically there's nothing saying occupancy isn't required,
right,
but we haven't repealed it either, so maybe it still has some teeth to it, but
hmm,
it needs to go on the LUZO.
do we need to, then we would repeal the
Then you
building
repeal the
ordinance
building code.
in the same warrant, probably, huh?
I'd probably put it, no, separate one, two separate
Same
warrants,
article. Okay,
yeah. Oh, yeah, I mean, two different articles, same warrant, yes.
yep. All right. Yeah, so with the short-term rental licensing ordinance, that's coming back at you guys probably next month. And, yeah, we still need to get together on a few things, Darrell.
Okay,
I think what mine, just as a starting point, I'm just gonna clean up a bunch of things that needed to get cleaned up in the draft, and then we can discuss how we wanna move forward with that.
Yeah.
That'll happen. Short-term rental licensing ordinance.
I think one of the important things, like I mentioned to you, is to have an administrative plan in place of how we're gonna do that, because that was one of the huge questions.
Yep, I will have an application form done by then. And also we'll have, we can just have some, okay, just pull back up here's the fee structure.
Yeah.
Models.
Jared.
Jared,
I've got to go. I'm sorry.
all right, thanks, Jared.
Looks like a fun year coming up.
It does.
Nothing significant.
Nice dull year.
Yeah. Well, some of it, we don't have a choice. With the 2003 stuff,
That makes it easy.
hopefully. Yeah, it'll be good. Anything else on the list that you guys are thinking about? Dave, anything or from the planning board side that you think would be helpful?
Revised applications would be nice,
Yeah.
that they've been asking
Oh,
for
yeah,
for
I've got
years.
those. I've
No.
got those in the works already.
Okay.
Yep, I'll just need to schedule a planning board meeting to actually have the time to go over it.
Don't make it difficult.
I have a question.
It's not. But,
One, when this group was initially adopted, we started out using it to review the LUZO because it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And to take a critical look at what no longer fits our town, what can be repealed, what can be replaced. And there wasn't a whole lot there then, and we started taking on these tasks of what else do we need? And we began creating new ordinances, and again, the LUZO has now begun getting thicker and thicker and thicker. So I think it would be helpful and probably useful for us from time to time to take a look at the entire LUZO and see what is still working in our town and what isn't. And if it isn't, let's get rid of it. Because sometimes there are things that are just dangling in the LUZO that get in the way of some of our citizens wanting to do certain things. And well, it's gonna have to be repealed at town meeting before we can take it out of there.
yep,
And Kim doesn't have the flexibility to say, well, I'll just put my blinders on and ignore that, so. You know, look at what works for us and what doesn't, and what doesn't shouldn't be in. So I just wanna, maybe that's a work product or work task for us from time to time as we go forward. If we all take a little bit of responsibility to read the LUZO and question what's still working and what isn't. And if you find something, bring it to this meeting. And have us hash it out. Maybe that becomes a warrant for repeal. I mean, an article for repeal within the warrant.
yeah, I would encourage people to look at that, like, I look at the ordinance all the time, so when I look at it, I'm usually trying to think about ways to improve the way things can get applied, or,
Right.
Things like what we have to do for 2003, or here's some trends coming down that we need to look at, but sometimes I'm not always looking at it like, hey, are we even using this section anymore that could just come out, or is this a use that we really don't need anymore, which we do.
Right.
Kim and I actually every year usually go through and try to do that.
Well, and we modified and reviewed the, like, where driveways are identified as, where's the address on this street or this street on a corner lot, but where's the driveway?
Right.
You know, we looked critically at those kinds of issues because it was getting very confusing.
Well, yeah.
And we just kept adding a page and adding a page for clarification. Let's put a footnote. No, let's get rid of it and rewrite it so it makes sense.
Right,
So,
yeah, like do front lot
Yeah.
line and or front, you
Exactly.
know, cause we don't have that.
We do need it from lot line?
Well, you do if you've got triangle lots that have frontage on two streets, you
Yeah.
know, cause one requires a deeper setback than another if it's public versus private roads.
Yep. Yes,
So how you take access, okay, that's your front, your rear now is to the highway, so you have a, 25-foot setback, cause that's your rear setback versus being a street, a public road setback.
right, I get it.
but that's just my thought, but
Oh, I agree.
as far as we are gonna be continuing this work, then we should constantly be reviewing the product we already have and not only how to improve it, but to look at what's not working and get rid of it.
Yep. We've
Yeah,
talked,
I agree with Rick completely. I think that's a great suggestion.
we have talked about repealing and replacing it with something a little different, but I still think you have a pretty good ordinance that works, and it would be a lot more complicated to just start again, in my opinion, than what we've been doing. Keep it simple. That's the goal.
Bingo.
But there's a lot of things that aren't that simple.
I was gonna
That's why
say, you
the
wanna
ordinance
keep it
is-
simple, but it's really not simple.
As simple as possible.
Yeah, but that's why I think every couple of years, we have to like tweak the. Old lots that don't meet current road standards provisions and try to figure out
That's coming back again.
which. I thought we had a pretty good process workaround there, but.
I think you're doing away with the road frontage requirements, and just saying, hey, as long as your road's adequate. That's not,
I think we did
it's not spanning out to be a easy one.
not having road frontage.
No, but I mean, then making sure your road is, adequate for emergency vehicles, it's backfiring.
Is it, well, then we should tweak it.
That's what we gotta tweak it again.
Yep.
It's like, good lord, this one, 4 times, I think it's already gone. Since we added it in 15.
Well, when you have like the history of the lots around here aren't 50-foot wide roads, so. we're
Right.
Trying to
No,
accommodate.
but
people
also,
to
yeah, I mean, but you have roadways too that are not being maintained by the property owners that use it, like trees are in the way or, vegetation has grown up and
Yep.
and it's breaking off mirrors and, but the UPS can get there. That is adequate for them.
Yeah, they keep the roads clear.
That is number one. Well, UPS can get there. Okay, but the fire truck can. Is that okay?
But that's a whole nother topic, isn't the fire truck a whole nother issue, because we have fire trucks that are, so very, very huge. And we don't always have fire trucks that are in keeping with the size of some of our roads. We don't tend to buy smaller fire trucks, we continue to buy bigger ones.
Well, I think you buy what you need.
You would think we're not. This is a whole nother topic.
Yeah, this is
That's
a whole nother
nother
issue.
topic. If you have roads that can't accommodate a large fire truck, why on earth are you buying them? I know it's a whole other topic, but I feel like that's a huge problem in this town. And that you aren't allowed to get building permits because of that, which makes perfect sense. You're doing exactly what we've told you to do. But if you're not buying the safety equipment that you need, that makes no sense to me at all.
Because they make more diminutive safety equipment. I mean, you go to cities with these tiny little roads and those fire trucks are able to get up those little roads. And yet we try to buy the biggest thing we can find, rather than buying something that might fit some of our smaller, more dated roads. Which puts you in
Driveways.
roads and driveways, which puts you in a bad spot when you have to say, oh, I'm so sorry.
They've done that
Yeah.
I don't envy you.
more than once.
You're the bad guy.
No, I'm not. The town voters are. I just enforce it.
What you need to have is a mixture in your fleet of the
Yeah.
larger vehicles and then some smaller ones that can be deployed
Right, but I don't-
strategically to those areas. So I think as you go forward, that's a big fire department.
Right, but I don't think that's the direction we're heading. Again, I know it's a topic for another meeting, but
Well, I think as you, what I'm thinking of, Joe, is you do future planning and future purchases. As you go forward, then that should be strategically part of the whole balance of what we've got for roads and.
I can't remember the last time we bought a standard chassis truck.
Yeah.
So we've been
So do
custom
we-
cabs
Yeah.
the last,
Sometimes
15
change is
years or whatever.
difficult, but has to come eventually. So,
My road's a perfect example.
Yeah.
You know, I guess it was never finished. It was supposed to, I'm on Cider Ridge off Beach Hill Crossroads, and I guess they were supposed, at the end of it, it was supposed to cut across the Beach Hill Road and or do a turnaround, and it's never happened. And, you know, it's been many years now. So.
Now, one of the things is, of course, departments are all working together on purchases, so that should be part of their plan that all the. You know, if we don't have it, perhaps Southwest Harbor buys one like that, because that could service the Sonesville and.
Yeah.
You know, Seal Harbor buys something, so it could help the harbor. I mean, so there's lots of ways we need to do better, I think, as we move forward.
right? But, you know, a lot of our conversation here is about a housing issue. And if you can't get building permits because you can't get down the road, that should be one of our number one concerns. Is that, I think that's, again, I'm new to the committee, so I don't know, but it seems like that should be an easy thing to address. To get these lots that aren't buildable, like my road, for example, we had that conversation, can't build down there. Should be an easy fix, I'm not
It's not
concerned
that
about
you
it.
can, it's, you got one tree in the way.
Right, no, no, no,
Except
no,
the
no.
Other places down further. they-
Right, no, I mean, it's a completely reasonable thing. And I'm lucky enough where I can fix that, but I can think of others that have, you know, grade issues or
elevation.
whatever.
Is a problem.
Yeah.
And if you've been told that you can't build because the potential truck that's going to come in 2 years is bigger than the current one, that doesn't really seem to make sense.
No, it's what's currently there for the fleet. That we're mostly trying to work with. There are small ones that can make some of them, the roads. But then Mike's gonna say, okay, that truck number 3 in Seal Harbor needs to go to this.
Mhm.
It's just gonna be a timing issue at that point,
And an educational
and
issue,
then,
education for the department.
yeah, he may require sprinklers in the building.
That's how you get away from the truck size, if you put sprinklers in, but that's another, I think, probably beyond our scope of what we're trying to do right now, but it's a problem and needs to be addressed.
LUZO, volume 2, chapter 17.
So here's, I thought some of that is a very good comprehensive plan
Yeah.
discussion, and that, you know, some of the goals start to direct policy decisions, like, you know, the size, and I'm just paraphrasing. The road width policy in town should be the driver of purchasing equipment that buys, that, you know, life safety equipment, not the other way around.
I think putting that in the comprehensive plan would be a very good idea.
Yeah. In the
That way, when purchasing does take place, it has to refer back to the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
So, well, this piece of equipment won't fit within our needs, but this one will, so let's buy this one.
Yes, that's the policy, that's where the policy discussion should happen. But in the meantime, where I think would be interesting is at this level, if our goal has been always to try to make it easier for people to build on lots. So prior to the last change we made, if you had a non-conforming road, it doesn't matter, you just wouldn't have been able to do anything. But now we have a policy where at least you get to go talk to Kim and the fire chief and say, let's cut down a tree.
If it's as simple as that.
Yeah, but I mean, at least that's the theory. So we
But
should
you
be
know, a
working on-
majority of these that I've been a part of with Mike has been vegetation clearing, trees too close to the road. There's been one grade issue that we're still dealing with. But Mike hasn't asked like realistic stuff.
Okay.
He's asked people just to cut their trees back, and also, he's requiring like a minimum 12 foot, which is a travel width.
Yeah.
For a driveway. He's not asking for the road standards in a subdivision, which the planning board can ask for it if they want to. Of course, sometimes people are working with a 25-foot right of way and they don't have 50.
Right.
So the board's really good about working with the people, and as me and the fire chief are, we're just trying to make sure emergency vehicles can get to your house.
No, 100%,
And if it can't, the town will probably get sued for it,
right,
you know, but Mike has been actually realistic. He's worked with the people. He's gone and looked at sites and with the people and walked them. And I've been there 9 times out of 10. But like I said, it's been 12-foot travel with 14.5 clear, which is just trees and vegetation and stuff, but
Right.
the actual travel is 12.
right,
Yes, he's not asking for anything unrealistic. He's asking people that are on private roads is to maintain them.
Right.
Because they're not maintaining them.
so I'll also tell you, one of the reasons I got on this committee was to become educated, so thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're very well. I
Yeah.
can sit down with you any day. You wanna come sit and
Okay,
lose
thanks for
out?
that, but anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
LUZO is their life.
Yes, LUZO is her life.
Alright.
We could do a docudrama.
Walk a day in my shoes.
Right.
No, thank you.
So
Open up that lid to that
It's not bad.
septic right there.
It's not bad.
Well, my original comment to what you were saying earlier, Kim, was like, some of what you're talking about doesn't sound like a land use ordinance issue as much as it is, here's what the policy is, now you just have to go out and do it. And then I still think it is fair to say that there is a policy decision that needs to get made to observe how you invest in life safety equipment to reflect what's here and what you want to be here, not the other way around. Yeah, there's a lot to be said for the whole world.
But it is a land use ordinance issue, as you say, the town should be protecting the taxpayers' properties. There's taxpayers' money that's buying all the equipment.
Exactly.
They need to buy the proper equipment to protect it.
Yeah, so it's a tough, it's like a mixture of policy choices. I feel like we're trying to do that. And I know Mike and Kim go out and try to be reasonable about it, but there's that. The flip side is, yeah, why are we buying the biggest fire truck there is? I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but if that's what you're doing, yeah, the question would be why. Or maybe you only need one.
Boy, are they expensive.
Uh-huh.
1.2.
Yeah, that's why I love town meetings, though. We're gonna argue about pencils. But we're
Yeah.
not gonna argue
Yeah.
about other investments that are a lot more than that.
So I apologize, I have another controversial question, potentially controversial question, again, since I'm new to this, I don't know the answer. What is our policy on, say, clear cutting and solar farms? Do we have something with that?
Funny you mention that. No, I was thinking of that.
It concerns me, well, two from, again, so I'm ignorant on the subject.
No, it's something I thought about.
But, you know, we live in a national park, we're surrounded by a national park.
Mhm.
And then we have a housing issue. Do we have a policy for that?
For solar farms?
Yeah,
No.
well, for clear, and I don't know the policy on clear cutting or, but solar farms in particular, I suppose, is my question.
Well, I know there's like public utilities in the ordinance, which typically have to be reviewed by the planning board, but no. There's no standards like that.
So we could have someone come in
We
legally,
could, yeah,
buy a big chunk of land.
well, apply, but yes,
Right.
buy a big chunk of land and put up 500 to
Right,
2,000.
right, and I'm not saying they
And no house.
can't do that, right,
But that,
but that's something we
is,
should talk about.
well, that's something, like I said, I was just thinking because of what happened in Bar Harbor.
Yeah,
on
that's
Knoxville
what I'm
Day.
thinking, exactly, exactly,
So I was like, geez, maybe we should think of that too.
quickly.
My
Probably,
point, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna mention that.
Thank you.
I'm glad you did.
Got it on the list.
So I think,
Thank
so just in case,
right,
you know,
Yep,
I know people, you got a lot of mixed feelings with it because people want it.
of course,
It's a good thing, you know, and then what do you do once it becomes obsolete? They say they just throw them in the garbage on the
Right.
news. So it's like,
The panels.
Yeah.
They're very toxic.
yeah. I think when you're talking about large scale solar, there's a lot of education that needs to happen for people to really understand, like, okay, here's the reality of what these are, not like, okay, here's all the worst
Yeah.
case scenarios, but
Yeah.
that being said, there's a lot of policy choices for a town to say, yeah, we want this kind of thing here, or maybe we want a different version of that. So,
And
Yeah.
I
You know,
don't know for
eliminate.
sure, Joe, I need to be educated too, but I understand that a lot of these solar panels leach toxins out well during their lifetime, so that once they're taken up, that land may be not usable for a long, long time. So there's another thing, you might have a 20-year solar farm, but it might be 100 years for.
Becomes a Superfund site.
Well, it does.
Oh, my God.
Well, that's the trouble
That's
with
an
it.
oxymoron.
You pull up that 20-year solar farm and you've got another 80 to 100 years before the
Yeah.
land could ever be used again. So that's a problem, I think, that needs to be addressed. Where do we want these? Do we want these large?
Right, you wanna limit it to like
Yeah,
certain clearing amount.
yeah, so they, I mean, they don't want it 500 or 600 acres.
And because everywhere you look, you see them now,
Yeah.
off the
I know.
highway, you know, going in Holden, and, I mean,
It's a
you
good
see
spot. for
spot
them,
clear,
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, that's gonna be a solar farm. You know,
It needs to be solar/wind farm.
So I'm old
So
enough
that's
to
what
remember
wind.
when nuclear power was an environmental thing. It was gonna help on get rid of fossil fuels and things. And it created a whole nother set of nightmares. So that's why I'm worried about these solar
Right.
farms creating solving one environmental issue and
yeah, but I
creating
think the
another.
sustainability committee will have something to say about that.
I think that they should, they're the ones that know more about it than we all do right now. So
Mhm.
what is your, don't you have a sustainability plan? I gotta read that now.
Yeah.
You guys just adopt one? Didn't it climate to thrive?
Put it on your notes.
And have you write something to that effect? So,
I guess our property values are somewhat high here for solar farms.
well, yes, I would
But
say the
still
value
should have
is-
something.
but also what do we do to encourage the kind of solar development that you want? Like,
Like rooftops
Should-
and that sort of thing.
if you're down here at the marina or over at the Hinkley Company and those buildings, why not have solar on
Yeah.
those buildings?
Well,
That's what
those
you
buildings down there were originally gonna have solar, except the cost became prohibitive because the whole project cost was so excessive. And those
Oh, I
were the
know.
first things to go, right?
Yeah.
Remember that? Those were all gonna be solar.
You should have penciled that one out a little better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rockefeller put solar panels on theirs and up at Dodge Point Road,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
on that road.
That'd be
Ryan
great.
Donahue does, well, he's his own little.
There's a few houses
I think
that
these are
have,
great options. They're not taking away housing.
no,
Not
Perfect
clearing a
option.
field.
Right, right.
You know,
Yeah.
another thing, Joe, about the clear cutting, if you have a 500 acre, it's gonna be visible from a lot of places
Oh,
in the
yeah.
park, depending, you go
Right.
on top of Cadillac and you don't wanna see
Right.
hundreds and hundreds of solar.
well, when they did the
farms.
cell towers,
They had to just
that
drive
had,
some-
they had to do like a long distance, and the one in Otter Creek got a lot of, you know, because you can see it from the park, but so they had to make it look like a tree.
But you have, you have,
It doesn't look like a
Sure
tree.
did look like a tree.
but you have an ordinance for that, right?
Yep, and all
You
the
guys-
branches are falling off, I get, huh?
Is there a moratorium for that?
Yes, there's 4 of them in this town.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Yeah, funny.
I had to sit through every one of them, that was painful.
Like you have one.
No, you got a lot of work to do. don't you?
Sweet. The hard stuff now.
Aren't you glad you asked? Is there anything else?
No, I
Yeah.
think it's important, like, you forget, like, these trends are coming and I can pay attention to it as much as I can, but you guys are out in the world and you know things that are happening and, you know, how do you want, what policies should we be looking at now?
Right,
These are the discussions that we should be having aside from, yeah, let's keep the principle that you're talking about. But there's things that are gonna come down the line that we need to be prepared for.
absolutely.
Sure.
So
There
we're
are-
trying to get it like we
there-
did with the house.
Yeah,
There are several towns that have recently declared moratoriums so that they could get their act together because of the solar.
Yep,
yep. Well, if we had a big proposal come out for that, may be something you'd want to consider, but now we're being a little proactive.
as long as somebody doesn't watch this and submit an application.
Well, then we could maybe get a moratorium. That's what
Yeah, but if they
moratoriums
got
are
it in
for.
before, unless you can make it retro.
Yeah, you can.
If, I don't, but I'm just saying at that point.
See,
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that we should have a moratorium. I was making the point that a lot of towns think it's a big problem.
Yeah, no, it's true. A few towns I'm working in down east, that's like a big deal for them. Land's cheap. Close to the road.
Yeah, I was surprised that the one went in Bar Harbor. That one's not cheap. So,
Yep. Yeah, I don't know what the economics around that were.
That one's what, 10 acres?
Yeah.
Before anybody knew what was happening.
yeah,
Boom.
The big development.
They're quiet,
Yep, they are that.
not like a wind farm.
Yeah,
I
It
guess
should
when-
be required though to be buffered somehow, too, if they're up by a road like they are, I mean, it's just. Like you're driving along with sudden you see, it's like bang, and then you get to see for miles and miles and miles.
Rockland has a few in town. Or at least one in town solar farm too, I'll look at what their ordinance is.
So I'm wondering, is this maybe a discussion for either the select board or someone about maybe a moratorium? Is that more than what this group is really for? I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean,
We
you
want
feel
that
like
on.
there's a threat, there's.
No,
something
Not
coming.
yet, but you
I
never know
mean,
what happens.
No, I know, I don't know if we really need to do that right now, I mean. I think we should just try to get an ordinance.
Yeah.
Written out, and if we get one, then we can do like an 18-month more and hopefully make it retro. Before the application come in, I'm not aware of any coming.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything.
Is our population going down every year?
No,
Year-round population?
oh. No, but it's shifting. Our population actually grew by 100 and something over the last census. But it's shifting to different areas. So some of the places like Seal Harbor and Northeast Harbor are going down, other areas in the Somerville area are growing, so,
With so many homes being rented now, that's the year-round
yeah. I mean,
population seems like it's less.
it may be in the next census.
Yeah, because this census included COVID.
So, it may very well, Alan, but, over the last, from 1960 to the present, we're actually not a lot, but we're more, we were around 1,600 year round, believe it or not, in the town of Mount Desert in 1960, and we're about 2189 now. So, sounds counterintuitive, but it has moved. We took various villages, you'd see a decline, but overall, I was surprised that the population was that low in 1960, because these villages were just packed.
Yeah.
But you go around and drive around these roads in Somersville and some of these places, those were purely wooded then, there weren't any houses there. So they're different.
Yeah, we have the population section started, so if anybody's interested of the comp plan. So I could try to see where we are with that.
Yeah.
Just give you some statistics.
Looks like you've done a good job getting us prepped for this.
Started to.
Do you have a committee yet of people for the comp plan rewrite?
We do, yeah, I don't
We
know.
actually advertised for them, but I don't think we've got too many.
Yeah. Comp plan. The LUZO / comp plan committee.
It becomes a de facto
It is what it is now.
comprehensive
legal
plan.
Forgot to bring that up. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I like to finish the data sections and then that's when the real work starts, so we have a little time. But we should get going on it. We'll be the last town on the island to finish the update. So, unless Bar Harbor keeps going. Like it, going. Got a lot to do.
Are you doing bar?
That is somebody from New Hampshire.
They have Cornell Knight coming back.
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
Well, they continue their exhaustive nationwide search.
Look, listen, one thing you guys can do here is pat yourself on the back and think about the stability that you've had as a community. And despite all the conversations we've had with the short-term rentals in the past year, I think there is a lot of trust that we're all trying to do mostly good things. So
I agree.
it's really helpful to have that. Whereas in Bar Harbor, I think that what they should do is spend a lot of time trying to rebuild trust rather than try to do anything too new. But they have there's a lot going on.
A lot of trust issues.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, that's it tonight.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you.
start. Good start.
Well,
Good questions, Jack.